Welcome to the Dork Forest. Jackie and her pals will never bore us. Shameless confessions
about our obsession
will make us laugh and smile. So let's explore the Dork Forest and dork out for a while.
Hello and welcome to the Dork Forest. I'm Jackie Cation. I'm your host. You know the websites, JackieCation.com, DorkForest.com, TheDorkForest.com, and FamilyPetAncestry.com. They all lead to a variety of places where you can listen to the Dork Forest. I'm Jackie Cation. I'm your host. It is November or December. In November and December, I ask that you do not donate to the Dork Forest. You instead find a local food bank and give them either the $10 to $100 that you were going to give the Dork Forest, because I know you were, because I have a PayPal button that you can start donating to again in January. But to find a local food bank in your neighborhood, you can go to feedingamerica.org and you can put in your zip code. If you do not live in the United States, you can put in the name of your town and the word food bank, and it will come up. You can do that here in the United States as well, oddly enough. The internet works like that everywhere, it turns out. So do that. Don't donate to the Dork Forest. If you want to support the Dork Forest still in these months, there are ways you can get stuff for people for the holidays as trinkets, as gifts. You can get T-shirts and CDs and merch over at JackieCation.com on the store. There's going to be a new stand-up shirt coming out, and that actually will not benefit me. That'll be a benefit for different charities, I think, is what that's going to be. All of it's available digitally, iTunes and Amazon, and Comedy Film Nerds has my DVD as a downloadable video, comedyfilmnerds.com. But if you want hard copies of the DVD of the CDs, you can get them at JackieCation.com. I also have a stand-up comedy T-shirt, my Spooky Reading Girl T-shirts. I have Dork Forest T-shirts and Ranger of the Dork Forest T-shirts. I have hoodies in stock. It is winter. And so if you want a hooded sweatshirt, zip hoodie, I actually have all the sizes in stock. You can email me, Jackie@JackieCation.com, to make sure that they are still in stock at any time, of course. And I will tell you if they are, and if they aren't, it would be back order, and it might be a while. So know in your heart. Other than that, another way to support the show, if you, because you're not donating in November and December, is to continue to use the Amazon banner. On JackieCation.com and DorkForest.com, there's a link to support the show, and all it is it's a link through to Amazon. And you order normally, like you would from Amazon. The Dork Forest just gets a little bit of a kickback for your order. It doesn't cost you extra at all. You can see my calendar where I'm doing stand-up comedy. You can always follow me on Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook. The Facebook page is JackieCation-Jokesmith. That's my fan page. If you have listened to all 600 and whatever episodes of the Dork Forest and would like more Dork Forest, there are premium episodes, probably a dozen of them. And they are, in the last couple of years, if I do a live episode, it usually costs me some money. So I have been putting them up on Bandcamp, and they cost money. They cost $2 a pop. But if you go to thedorkforest.bandcamp.com, you can see those different shows. They're usually live episodes around the world. And there is also four stories on a sort of a handmade storytelling album that I made over there too, and those are just $1 each. So if you want to go to Bandcamp, you can do that as well. Oh, why don't I do the credits? The Dork Forest is not made possible just by me, Jackie Cation. Patrick Brady's going to fix this audio, by God, and it's going to be great. And Mike Rickberg sang that song you just heard. He composed and sang it with his wife, Sarah Cohen. He will sing his words to the Mexican Hat Dance at the end of the program. And Vilmos fixes JackieCation.com. He does the website. Go to allthingscomedy.com and find other podcasts there. I also have another podcast called The Jackie and Laurie Show with Laurie Kilmartin on the Nerdist Network. Dorks, nerds, we're all in this together. The Jackie and Laurie Show is literally Laurie Kilmartin and I discussing and just essentially just going off about stand-up comedy. So if you like stand-up comedy, you might like the Jackie and Laurie Show over on Nerdist. Anyway, let's get into this show because it's awesome. Hey, it's Jackie Cation. I'm in my living room with Jen Briney, podcaster, fellow podcaster. Welcome to the Van Nuys.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hilarious. You just told me that you flew down here to be on the Dork Forest.
I did.
From San Francisco, which still not cheap. Still hilariously, thank you very much. That is very flattering.
You're welcome. I'm actually living in Oaktown. I'm on the other
Oakland.
side of the bay.
Sure.
Yeah. So not as expensive, but still horrendously expensive.
Right. And
But yeah, I'm a Southwest A-list member.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thank
All right.
you.
Is that first 15? Is that what I'm hearing? A1 through 15? or-
Not business class.
Oh,
no.
not business class. So just first 30.
Yeah. Just the best part for me is I always book the last flight of the day, and then I go to any flight I want to before it.
Oh.
It's the best thing ever. So I'm just going to go to LAX after this and hop on any flight I want to. It's
that's
beautiful.
That's awesome. There's a nice little dorky trick. Southwest Airlines fans. Now, do you... All right, I'm weeding off, but so A-list to Southwest. I am a Delta. I fly Delta, and I also have a Southwest card, and I try to fly Southwest when I can because I like Southwest. I think they're funny, quite honestly.
I do too.
Even though I do stand-up comedy, I genuinely, and comics are brutal on the flight attendants. They're fucking brutal, and you're like, they're at work. They're trying to make their work bearable. Leave them the fuck alone and laugh at their dumb jokes. And some of them aren't dumb. Some of them are funny.
Some of them are funny.
So, yeah.
Some of them sing.
Yeah.
I love it.
Some of them are screwing around in other ways that make me happy.
Yeah.
So just if their jobs are that much better, get off their ass. Anyway, so how do you be an A-lister? Do you have to fly a lot? Or
You do.
Can you?
So you have to get 25 flights that you pay for in a year.
Oh, okay.
And so my strategy is that I pay for everything until I get A-list, and then I use the points. So I got down here on points. It actually cost me $22.
Well done, because $11 a leg.
Yep.
Or a route.
The 9/11 fee.
9/11. Oh, is that what that
Literally
is?
the 9/11 fee. They call it that.
Boo fucking who. Wow. So how soon we forget. How soon.
I know.
It's I'll tell you how soon we forget. Vegas was 2 weeks ago. So or a month ago. And yeah. So
And Walmart was last night, as was the
New York thing.
New York thing. Yeah.
What happened in New York? In Walmart? Walmart, not New York.
Three people mowed down in a Walmart with a gun in Colorado, and then there was a guy, a Muslim, so we're calling him a terrorist, that drove on a bike path and killed 8 people
in the
New
truck
York
in New York City.
Yeah.
Right. And because he was raised Muslim, heaven forfend.
Yeah.
Okay. So at Jen Briney, by the way, JenBriney. And you have a podcast. The reason we're going political immediately, you guys, is because you have a political podcast. And plus, we're alive. So it's called Congressional Dish, right?
It is.
Your podcast is called Congressional Dish. It's on iTunes and Stitcher and all the places that are repurposed in your own. Is there a congressionaldish.com?
There is, and
you go.
that's where you can find the show notes, which are the most important thing I do. I also have an app for both for Apple and Android phones.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, when you talk about what's going on in the world, there's so much that you don't know what to believe.
Right, the minutia.
Yeah.
And sources?
Yeah, so I put all my sources. If I say something on Congressional Dish, you'll at least know where I'm getting it from.
Fucking Jen Briney is a walking ray of hope. Congressional Dish.
Yeah, because I'm just a person.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm talking about, but this is where I'm getting it from. So look at it for yourself.
So there you go. Tell me if it's secret Nazis.
Yeah.
And so what? Do you have a political education? Where did you go to? Where'd you go? Now you're from California.
I am.
You went to high school here in California. Did you go to college here in California?
I did.
Where did you go to college?
Loyola Marymount. So right by the airport.
Okay. That is such a Californian way to put it. It's right in between the 10, the 210, and the 405,
the 105.
It's not, well, and parking is an issue, but you might as well just valet. Anyway, so Loyola Marymount.
Yes.
And what did you get your degree in?
Drinking.
Oh, really? Congratulations. Did you get your BA or is that a BS?
No, really. So Loyola, it was a great school, but I didn't take advantage of my first 2 years. I really just partied. I wasn't living with my family.
That's because you were 18.
I was 18 to 20. Mm-hmm. So, but my life changed in 2003. This is when I became a more serious person because I was trying to escape a bad breakup. Just wanted to leave the country. And so I went and studied abroad in Germany.
Oh my God, that is a giant geographic. You're like,
it works.
I'm going to need to go far away to recoup from this situation.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I just don't want to be anywhere near you. So I'm going to go across a couple oceans.
In Germany?
Yeah.
Where in Germany?
I was in Bonn,
Okay.
which was the capital right after the war, before they moved it to Berlin. So it was a really interesting place to be when we started the Iraq War.
Right.
And for me, the hardest part was I would go to bars and to restaurants and people would hear my accent. They would know I'm American and they would say, why is your country doing this?
Oh,
and
right.
I would go, I don't actually know. And that was so embarrassing to me that for the first time in my life, I started asking questions. And it was weird to come back here because, like I said, that was the conversation happening in bars and restaurants. When we went into bars and restaurants, there wasn't sports on TV. There would be. There would be like one screen on soccer, the other screen on British Parliament.
Okay.
You know, so it's like they're paying attention.
Yeah.
I came back here and I went back to school and all of my friends were talking about the movie Old School, which, great movie. But we just started a fucking war. So maybe we should discuss this. And so the reverse culture shock was really, really hard for me. And so my senior year was when I really buckled down. I was a communications major. I got to really study what the media was doing and how they were doing it and manipulating us and all that stuff and got so into it. So I feel like I got this power year at Loyola Marymount where I really learned a lot about researching.
So it was 2 years in Germany, essentially.
It was only 6 months.
6 months in Germany.
It changed my whole life.
Just a sort of an immersion program of what citizenship could look like.
Yeah.
Essentially. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Thank you.
For having your eyes opened and being willing to see it. And then you came home and went back to, and so senior year, you just were like, clearly I need to figure some shit out.
I just wanted to understand what we were doing.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was blaming everything on the Bush administration.
Yeah.
You know, for somewhat obvious reasons.
Right.
And I just, every time I got an answer, it led to more questions.
Yeah.
So it'd be like, so why did we start this war? And I was like, oh, wait, oil's central to this. Why would we start a war over oil? I mean, I was that basic.
Right.
Where I didn't even, there was no big picture thinking. I'd never thought outside the United States or, I mean, I didn't think outside of California or even my city. It was just my little world.
Yep.
And I never asked, which is so embarrassing. So.
It's super embarrassing. But here's the thing about education. You go in not knowing things, and you're supposed to learn things.
Yeah.
And it's the difference between being willing to learn and being not willing to learn. And so every time I learn something new, I'm like, how could I have not known that?
Right.
And yet I didn't know it. And now I know it. Allow me. It was like I worked I was a temp and somebody explained at great length how to do this mailing. And at the end of it, the woman said, do you understand how to do it? And I said, sort of. I'll be asking as we go along for more questions because I have the overview and I'm going to need specifics again. And she just looked at me. She was like, oh. And I said, yeah, no, I'm going to need at least one more run through this. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's I'll do it however you want me to. This is maybe not the best analogy, but because I'll do it however you want to do it, but I didn't want to do it wrong.
Yeah.
And so ever since then, I've always thought, well, I might as well just learn what is being said, how other people would like it done. It is a bad analogy.
I don't think so.
Strike it from the record.
I really don't think it's a bad analogy because that's kind of what happened. That's how I got into Congress because I was blown away in 2003 by the big picture, but then it was like, now I want to know the specifics of how this is being done.
Okay.
So that's how I got into Congress because my dad had voted for George W. Bush.
Right.
So when I was blaming him for everything that's ever happened in all of human history.
Right.
He was like, none of this could happen without Congress. They control the money. They could throw him out of office. They could stop the war. And he's like, so stop blaming him for everything. And I went, well, that's an interesting thing you just said.
Right. So we've started huge. You know, I'd like to blame God. And then you're like, no, let's go talk about the angels. And then let's talk about just one, what. But the thing, okay, so you started really big. The war really affected you that much.
It did.
And you're like, okay, so I'm going to find out more. And so you grew up in California. You have representatives in California. And so did you start with the California? You started big and came down. So you went U.S. Congress. And that's where you're at right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you ever go down to the state level?
No.
Okay.
And I wish someone would. I get emails all the time from people like, could you do this for my state? And I'm like, No. Figuring out the U.S. Congress is enough.
Right. I mean, so just to, for our foreign listeners and to refresh me, I have a degree in political science, by the way, almost completely moot. So, but what so talk to me. So the U.S. Congress is made up of the House and the Senate.
Correct.
The Senate is a representative of 2 representatives from each state. So there are 100 members, correct?
Correct.
Because there are 50 states in the United States.
Correct.
So there are 2 senators for each state. The House, on the other hand, is done by population. So I don't know the equation, but I know there are over 430.
There is very close, 435.
Okay.
And each district is approximately 700,000 people.
Okay. And so that's how districts are broken up to give representation.
Well,
except for that
they draw lines around the people they want voting for them.
Right.
So we allow the parties to pick the voters. So basically, and this is actually important right now because the census, that's what counts all of us.
Yeah.
It says how many people we have, how many chicks, how many dudes,
right.
And so the census determines how all the redistricting is done because people move every 10 years.
Right.
But whatever party is in control of the state government during the census, they get to draw the new maps. And so that's why you have these movements now with both the Democrats and the Republicans.
The gerrymandering thing.
Yeah, and the next opportunity for gerrymandering is 2020. It's coming up.
Right.
So the Republicans actually named their effort to jerry-rig all of it. It's called Project Red Map. That's fun.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Holding back nothing. Here's the weird thing, though. Do you know the history of the word gerrymandering? I do not.
I used to, but not off the top of my head.
Fair enough. So gerrymandering is the where the party picks the voters because, and this is done at the state level. This is not done at the federal level.
It's done at the state level. There is no uniform standards for how we decide who is grouped together. So you would think you and your next door neighbor would be in the same district, and in places that's not true.
Because they can draw the line in between you and those 2 houses. Interesting. So what would be, I mean, it would make more sense to say everyone in this area code, I mean, or whatever, is what is their excuse for redrawing the lines? I mean, granted, Project Red, whatever.
Red Map, yeah.
So blatant. Right, that doesn't sound like there's no excuse anymore. But initially, what was the excuse? Any idea?
I have no idea. I think it's just that we've stopped paying attention to the entire branch.
Yeah.
Which is kind of why I started the podcast to begin with, because we're so focused on the executive branch. Even now, you turn on the TV, we're still talking about Hillary. She lost a year ago.
Yeah,
and
she's a private citizen.
Yeah, she's a private citizen, and she's a historical citizen. But why are we talking about her when we have 435 people in Congress doing things?
Right.
Yeah.
And
they've been there. Some of these people have been there more than my entire lifetime. So I'm fascinated by them, and they're making all the rules, and they control all the money, and it's just everything's happening there. They can stop everything Trump is doing while we're paying attention to the executive branch, which we have very little control over.
Right.
So once I realized my power is here, I wanted to take more control over it. And there's so few of us doing it that's why I think they get away with it. I don't think the system was designed to be like this, but they just changed the rules in their own favor because they get to change the rules.
Right, because they're in charge of the rules. And so what do you watch C-SPAN 3?
I do. That's my favorite one.
Why? Why is C-SPAN 3 the best?
So
how did the C-SPANs
first of all, there's
break up?
3 C-SPANs.
Yeah.
So the 2 that you get with basic cable. So let's talk for a second too about how Comcast is evil. You get with basic cable C-SPAN 1 and 2. So C-SPAN 1 is everything that happens on the House of Representatives. C-SPAN 2 is everything that happens on the floor of the Senate.
Okay.
But C-SPAN 3 is 1 tier up, so it costs you $30 extra. But you get all the hearings, and the hearings are fun. So that's where you actually see them create the bills. That's where you see them fight. That's where you see...
It's $30 a month? Yeah. First of all, it's cable. You have to pay to get C-SPAN at all. Who owns C-SPAN?
The cable companies. They say, if you look at it, it says provided by cable. It is a public service, but they charge you a lot for the third one.
Yeah.
But you can go on the internet and get everything that C-SPAN has.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily need cable to watch it all, but if you want to watch it live, you need to have a cable subscription.
Okay.
But
And
then
do you just have it in the background of your
all
life?
the time. Yeah.
Okay.
And even my husband's gotten kind of into it. He'll watch certain hearings.
Right.
It took 14 years to get him there. But I find a little marijuana gets him into the hearings pretty well. And
Right. Well, because it's got to be, it's got to get you down, and just infuriate.
sometimes. Depends on the topic of the hearing. But sometimes you get to watch them craft a bill. And it's interesting. So right now I'm working on an episode about the Veterans Administration.
Yeah.
There's a program where it allows veterans to go to doctors in their own neighborhoods instead of going to the VA.
Yeah.
And my spidey sense was like, you're trying to privatize the VA. And so I'm looking into that. But what
Yeah.
I'm finding in the last couple of days is it's actually not that nefarious. It actually seems like a decent program. So every once in a while I do get surprised and
Oh, there you go.
yay.
Oh, yeah.
It's not
nice.
it's not all bad news. There's a lot of bad news, but it's not all
Right.
bad news.
Right. So how many episodes of Congressional Dish are there? So
I've-
5 years. So 200 or?
I've done 160.
Okay.
And my whole shtick for the first 2 years is I read every bill that passed the House of Representatives. That's how I learned.
Wow.
Yeah, it sucked. I thought it would be possible.
You thought it would be possible?
Yeah, it wasn't possible.
To read every bill that was being proposed at the House of Representatives?
Passed.
Oh, that passed.
Because
Okay.
my theory going into it, having known nothing about Congress, was
Yeah.
if they can pass this bill, they obviously had to read it.
Yeah.
And therefore, if they can read it, I can too. I'm a
Right.
fast reader.
Yep.
No.
No.
They pass things that they don't know.
They probably haven't read it either.
Yeah, they say their staff has, but and I've just seen horrible things like the way our government is funded, and this is going to happen on December 8th too. Our government is funded with, it's supposed to be 12 different bills, right? That
Okay.
are carefully crafted and voted on individually.
budgets?
Yeah. So, the budget and the actual funding are two different things, which is all kinds of confusing. The
Yeah.
budget is like the first draft. It's not legally binding in any way.
Okay.
But they use that first draft to create these 12 bills. But they don't actually do those 12 bills properly. Instead, they're funding all 12 sections of the government all at once right before Christmas. And I've seen this happen every single year I've done Congressional Dish. So what you get is a 2,000-page bill that funds everything. And then they stuff all kinds of crap in there, basically using it as like a vehicle to
They're
carry
just, like,
things into
they're
law.
just hiding shit underneath the carriage of the vehicle.
Funny you say that because I call those provisions dingleberries.
Right.
Yes.
So December 8th, this is about to happen.
Yeah.
But in previous years, they've put it off, right? They've stalemated Obama and
Yeah.
they said we're going to close the government.
Well, that's where we're at. So the government's supposed to be funded by September 30th.
Okay.
So they've already extended the deadline till December 8th. You'll start to hear the government shutdown talk around that week.
Yeah.
They'll probably extend it by another week, but
Yeah.
God forbid they actually get into Christmas week. So by the 15th or so, we usually get that monster bill that gets signed into law to prevent the government shutdown. That's the way they justify this. So it's like, you have to sign this, President Obama, or else we're going to have a government shutdown.
Right.
So he signs it, and whatever else is stuck in there becomes law too.
Why is it? Now, I know why, but why hasn't anybody who knows why it is? Here's what I would like ideally, and why isn't it? Is that we do the funding piece by piece.
That's how it's
12
supposed
different
to
bills.
be.
That is how it's supposed to be?
Absolutely. They have 12 different committees. They're all named after the sections of government. Like,
Right.
there's a whole process for this. And somehow down the line, it got thrown out the window.
Right.
The only thing that gets funded properly and on time every year is military spending. It's the only one.
That's the only one.
The rest of it is just kind of a crapshoot. And it's the most frustrating thing to watch. But these people seem to think it's okay because they've been in Congress for 30, 40 years. And
it's
this is
been-
how it's been done. And
For 30 or 40 years.
Yeah.
I wonder what the history of putting the bills together, like who was the fucking diabolical genius who said, let's make them all go in at once and then we can hide some women have to stand on one foot if they ever want to get birth control bill, you know? And so you have no idea how long this has been like
I
this.
don't. I
But-
mean, really, I've been immersed in this for 5 years.
Right.
But
And-
that's really where my timeline starts. I've started. So what I do on the show to like go down into my dork curiosity, because I feel like to even understand the bills, I have to understand the issues behind them and where they came from. And so I'll do deep dives on certain topics and I'll find out about things that passed, but there's just been so much history that I was never taught, you know? So it's like, if it's not on the news and it's not something we're discussing in day-to-day life, I have no background from before when I started. How are you
supposed to find it? And so, wow, this is, you're doing the Lord's work here, man. You're doing some vital work.
I think I'm just doing the citizens' work.
You are definitely doing the citizens' work, but I mean, it's like, it's hard. It's the amount of work that must go into each episode. Are you do it by yourself? Is this a solo? You'll be happy to know that I've done no research into your podcast.
No, that's
can I
fine.
Be on your podcast? Yes, you can. I also yesterday recorded one about Veronica Mars, a show I've seen one of. So there you go. Smashing Pumpkins, never heard them. Anyways, H.P. Lovecraft, never read it. Anyway, so those are the upcoming episodes. Tomorrow, Magic the Gathering, don't care. I can build a deck, but nobody wants me to. Nobody wants me to build their deck. So I just got an email from that guy going, I'll bring you a couple of decks so you can see it. And I was like, you can. And I will love to see them. Congratulations. And I did write an erotic fan fiction between a necromancer and a blue wizard, where she kills him and then brings him back to life and says, you forgot your safe word. And that was the punchline. So that was the whole, fantastic. It was very funny. Anyway, so here's the thing about Congress and the congressional dish. I'm talking, by the way, Jen Briney. I'm talking. Why don't I have a show on NPR? I just said I'm talking. I'm talking to Jen Briney, you guys. It's JenBriney at Jen Briney. That's Twitter, Instagram, all the things.
Yes.
And then congressionaldish.com. Find the podcast. There's only 160 episodes. How long is each episode?
Well, that keeps getting longer because I find that with the stuff I have to say, it's generally an hour and a half.
Okay.
But I also thank all of my contributors at the end and answer their questions and go off about whatever they want me to go off about.
Okay, so there's like addendum kind of stuff.
Yeah, so at the end of it, I just kind of talk as long as I feel like it because it's a podcast. Who's going to stop me? Mm-hmm. So that when you look at it, it'll say like 2.5 hours, but it's not all substance. It's me screwing around at the end. And I screw around in the middle, too. That's the thing. I'm just a person who's curious about this. And when you're like, oh, I'm NPR, people are trying to push me to be NPR.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm too big of a goofball for that. You know, I want to throw a dick joke in the middle of a bill. Right.
But I'll tell you, NPR could use a dick joke. And,
I agree.
Yes.
And that's what's making me crazy. The stuff that I'm finding is so fascinating and it's so interesting. And I'm obsessed with C-SPAN. I put so many C-SPAN clips into my show. And it is interesting.
Edit in,
yeah.
Right. Besides sourcing out all of your the statements you make and the information you're giving, you're sourcing that in the notes.
Yeah.
You're also editing in using what, Audacity or GarageBand or some damn thing?
Well, for the last 2.5 years, I've had an audio editor.
There you go.
Yeah. So I was doing this myself, but it was killing me and I had no life.
Right.
So I'm trying to find that whole work-life balance thing.
Yeah.
Because I've never been a workaholic. Don't really want to be. I wasn't enjoying it.
No, there's no reason to be one.
Yeah.
And so you find the clips though.
I do. So what I'll do is I'll walk around with my phone and I'm listening to hearings. And I listen to it on double speed because they're wicked long.
Yeah.
And so I take screenshots of the stuff that's interesting.
Okay, and it'll have time code or something on it?
Yeah, it'll have the time. Then I go back in and give my editor, like, here's the first few words, here's the last few words, grab these, transcribe them for me.
Patrick Brady does that for the clip.
Yeah, it's perfect.
In for the clip.
And that way, when I'm making the show, I don't have to listen to all of them to remember what was said. I can read it, put it in order to tell the story. Because that's really my goal, is to tell an interesting story. You'll understand what's going in the bill, but you're understanding why, who said it, who got paid. Like, all of these are stories.
Right.
And
what's I want to hear another good one. Is anything good happened in the last year or two that
anything good?
You got a good story that you ended up telling on the show? How about a particularly horrible one then?
Oh, I've got so many of those.
Right.
So many.
It's hard to remember.
Well, here's one that's like, this is a 50-50. Like, there's nuance to this type of thing.
Okay.
So after 9/11, we found out that our communications people aren't able to communicate with each other. Their radios don't talk to each other. The police and the firemen, they use different equipment.
Oh, okay.
Total mess. So one of the things that
all the different emergency people.
Yeah, so like the police department uses one type of equipment with one channel. The fire department's using something else. So they weren't speaking to each other.
Right.
And also their communication systems were crashing. So if they were trying to use like the cell phone network or anything like that, like there just isn't a first responder emergency system. Yeah. So
even
after
though boo, we get the thing, right? It says it's a test of the emergency broadcast system. Clearly, just more theater, more
that
TSA
works
theater
for us. And I love the emergency alert system. It told me about a tornado over my head in Pennsylvania. So yay for emergency alert system. I appreciate that one.
Okay.
But this is one like the walkie-talkies need to talk.
Okay.
You know, and right now we all have phones that can be walkie-talkies in our pockets.
Yeah.
So what's happening is that after 9/11, Congress passed a bill that basically said like we need to have this nationwide first responder network.
Right.
It's going to be called FirstNet. It's being built.
Skynet.
Little creepy, right?
Creepy, yeah.
And FirstNet, this is what I found out this year through a weird C-SPAN 3 hearing. FirstNet has decided that instead of building a network, they're just going to give $7 billion to AT&T. And so our first responder network is literally AT&T. And now all these different states are signing up. When I did the episode, this was probably 3 or 4 months ago, there were 7 states. And I now follow FirstNet on Twitter. And I think there's been at least 4 more that have signed up.
Right.
But this is one of those things, like, maybe we should have a conversation about it.
Right.
But no one even knows about it.
Well, and the weird thing is I signed up for a thing, and I've talked about it before. I signed up for this. There's the TSA pre-check when you go through. TSA pre-check's great, right? Let's go look a man in the eyes and tell him I'm not a monster and give him $85 and then I get to skip a line, right? For I don't know how many years. There's a new thing called Clear. Have you heard about Clear?
No.
Clear is you get to skip the TSA pre-check line.
What?
Yeah. Here's the thing about Clear. Clear is privately owned.
No.
By 2 people named Ken and Karen. They don't have last names. Literally, when I signed up, my sister signed up for some reason. And she said, you should totally sign up for Clear. You're a Delta Diamond. You'll get it for free. And I was like, okay. And so I did it. And at the end of signing up, I said, so is this through the government? Is this another government TSA thing? And the woman goes, no, this is privately owned. It was, they tried to do it and then it was rebought by Ken and Karen in 2003.
What? So what happens when you go to the airport?
Fingerprints and retina. It's like something out of Minority Report where
horrific.
I could be murder she wrote anywhere now, except so I go through the Clear line, which skips the TSA line.
Where's the Clear line?
You're going to LAX, right?
I am.
You
bet your ass I'm going to go look for this Clear line.
Look for the Clear line.
Oh my! The rabbit holes are endless.
Yeah, and the science fiction dystopian. I mean, my father has always said we live in a dystopian present. You don't need to read those books.
Yeah,
and I was like, but the books usually end up nice. They usually win at the end. That's why I usually read them. And but yeah, the national ID program with our the other new thing at the airport is that all of every state has to be on the national network.
Yeah, it's going to be a clusterfuck in 2018 when people don't have the right ID.
Right, and it's another way to get poor people not to vote. Because
I didn't see that angle.
That angle is because the sign at the airport is not to vote, not to travel. It will trap them in their homes. It'll trap them in their tiny towns because they can't travel by air unless they have a certified ID now.
It has to be like a passport, which is not cheap.
No, passports aren't cheap, or you have to have a state ID from a state that is in the national network. Like Oregon isn't, Washington isn't. There's a couple of different. There's a dozen states
Missouri,
that are like, that are like, we're not interested in your weird national ID. Which I was happy that there wasn't a national ID when I got my second DUI. Because I got my first DUI in Minnesota, which was called my first DUI. I got my second DUI here in California, which was called, by the way, my first DUI.
Oh, wow.
Because there was no national network.
There you go.
And And so I have friends who have had DUIs in at least a half a dozen different states. And
God
you're
bless
like,
America.
"Hey, exactly. Why don't you get some help? Why don't you get some help there, Johnny?" And,
Or, Uber.
right, pre-Uber. And
Yeah, that was trouble pre-Uber. That's true.
So, but Clear is so then I started looking into Clear. So I Googled the words Ken and Karen Clear, and because I had asked a woman, is there a website for Ken and Karen to find out more about it? And she said, I know Karen's on LinkedIn. I was like,
my God.
LinkedIn? And so I found Karen. Her name is Karen Clear on LinkedIn. And you're like, what the fuck is your last name? Is it Hitler? Is it Rockefeller? Is it Trump? What is it?
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Now I
So-
need to go through all my hearings, see
Right.
if they even know about this. Because this is the thing. Like, I knew that.
Who justified that?
Yeah, who's allowing this? But this is
Because
this is what's
AT&T
happening to me in this experiment of mine.
Yeah.
So I went into this just being like, what's going on in Congress? Oh, this C-SPAN shit's pretty cool.
Here's a podcast.
Well, and it really happened. I'm going to totally lose my train of thought, but it really happened when I was cleaning and I saw a representative from Oklahoma slip something into an energy and water funding bill that protected secret campaign contributions, and he had the balls to brag about it. So that's really when I was like, oh, there are things happening that we're not being told, because like Rachel Maddow didn't talk about it on TV.
Yeah.
There was nothing on the internet, no articles, no blogs. Like no one knew it happened. And that's when
Right.
I was like, stuff is happening that we don't know about. That was the whole catalyst for this thing.
Yeah.
But once I started it, the pattern that was, I can't even stop seeing it, is that they're trying to privatize everything. So it's like when we're talking about this TSA thing, 9/11, all the terrorists went through privatized security. You don't want security with a smile. You want
Right.
someone who's going to take the gun out of your pocket, not be like, oh, well, we don't want you going to the other airline, sir. Like walk around the metal
Right.
detector, which happened at Boston Logan Airport. I have the YouTube video.
Right.
Like you can watch it happen. But they're still trying to go back in that direction because there's this belief by too many people in Congress that the private sector can do everything better by its very nature.
Right.
So you could have the same exact employees. You could have me and you working at a private sector firm, or me and you going to do the same thing for the government. We become garbage as soon as we work for the government for these people. It's the weirdest thing I've
Right.
ever seen. So we've hired people that don't believe that government can do anything right by its very nature to run our government.
Right.
And it's not going well.
No.
So hearing this clear shit, it makes perfect sense to me, knowing the gang that's working for our government right now.
Right.
It makes perfect sense. I just don't know if Congress is aware of this. I didn't know this was happening at LAX. There's certain airports, I know like San Francisco is one of them,
Right.
where they're allowed to have some privatized security now.
Yeah.
But this means that it's expanded if it's happening at LAX.
Well,
it's hard to keep track of.
And Clear brags. They're like, we're in a dozen airports. We're going to be in 22 airports by the end of the year. And so you're like, so when I go to the airport, like I went to the Minneapolis airport and it was there. But then I went to the, I think it was Charlotte or Charleston. I forget. And I was like, oh, they don't have a Clear line. And so I had to stand with the not peasants of TSA PreCheck. And the whole thing, when I didn't have TSA PreCheck, and Andy, my husband, he always insists, he refuses to go through the metal detector. He's like, if I'm going to the theater, I would like the entire experience. So please pat me down. And he's like, I would like front row seats to the whole thing. And so it's awesome. But I fly too much and just want to get through.
Yeah, I want to be in 4 minutes.
Right.
It's
So
great.
He doesn't go through the spinny one. He'll go through the regular metal detector. Like if he has pre-check, he'll go through regular metal detector.
Yeah.
But if they want you to put your hands up, like you're under arrest, which is what I always think of whenever I go through that TSA thing and they want me to put my hands up. I'm like, are you getting me, or what are you preparing me for?
Yeah.
Every time you have me put my hands up, what are you preparing me for on a murder mystery show when the murder victim looks real? I feel like you're preparing me to see dead bodies, and I don't want to. And and I don't want to be prepared to be arrested. I would like to either be killed or to be allowed to live free.
Yeah.
That is Thomas Paine, but backwards. Excellent. So what are the hearings that you're listening to? So there must be so much work, though.
So much work. But luckily, like, you know what they say? Like, if you enjoy your job, you never really work.
Right.
So I just get to follow whatever story is interesting to me now. And I think this Clear thing might be an episode because this is fascinating. But that's the type of thing that I discover. It's like, I'm curious about this, so I'm going to follow this for the next 2 weeks.
Right.
And make something out of it.
Like the VA thing.
I've been following this for 3 years, and now it's just the time to actually go down the rabbit hole.
Right.
It's Veterans Day weekend is when I'm releasing it. So it's like, okay, now is the time to be like, are they screwing with your healthcare? Yes or no?
Right.
So I'm going to give them an episode.
Yeah.
But then the other thing that I'm trying to do, like the Thanksgiving episode, you're friends with Matt Maher, right?
But I know Matt Maher.
Yeah. So he's a friend of mine. And so
Okay.
we went to the Comedy Store, and I had 3 bills. And so at the store, you know, I have the little podcast studio in the basement.
Oh, okay.
I talked about 3 bills. We watched some C-SPAN together, and we discussed it together. And it was so much fun because I would love to make it. I would love to just have conversations about this stuff. So
Right.
it's not
It would be
just
nice
me.
Right. It would be nice to have it be more of a social thing where where you don't feel quite like the Unabomber in your own home.
It's true.
Spinning.
Yeah.
So,
like, don't you know about FirstNet? How do you not know?
I don't know about FirstNet, but that very easily could be the clip because people need to know about fucking FirstNet.
Yeah.
So,
Which is AT&T. So if you want to have service in an emergency, now you know a company you have to buy.
Well, thank God I know AT&T. I did an episode with a guy named Chip Chinnery about Chip's money tips and Chip's dorkdom. Sometimes dorkdoms make me uncomfortable. Many people have hobbies that are not my hobby, and I'm like, let's hear it, let's do it. And Chip loves to fiddle and diddle with credit cards and free NFL pass things and fly to Tokyo to get the last for the day to get the diamond status or whatever. And so he'll spend 2 hours to get $250 off on his Visa card or something. And it's Chip's money. It's actually quite interesting.
Yeah.
And every month or every week or whatever, I'll get an email from Chip's. I'm a subscriber. And I've lost my thread because he was talking about it was like this. God damn it, I forgot what I was going to say. What were we talking about?
The only thing going through my head is Chip Chinnery, Chip Chinnery, Chip Chiroo. I'm sure I'm not the first to do that, but
No.
I just can't help it.
I know. I wonder. I've always wanted to say, Chip, do you have a regular name?
Is this real?
Is it Elvis? Is it Elvis Chinnery? Because that would be fun too. But Chip will the rabbit hole that he goes down, the amount of prep that he does to save $200, to find a $175 weird gift card that you get separately in the mail if you get a credit card and then cancel it or never cancel it but pay it off, or use it to pay your mortgage, or you use it to pay your some big bill for childcare or whatever. And he's like, you just got to spend $5,000 in a month. And I'm like, I don't want to spend $5,000 in a month.
Yeah.
Can I not? And he's like, you gotta do it and then figure out. And I was like, well, I don't want anything that's $5,000.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I guess I could do all of my flights right now. And then I'll have another card sitting around this house that I hope that I don't forget to pay, which would be.
Exactly. It's too hard.
It's too hard, but he loves it. He loves it. And that is the rabbit hole that he'll sit and do.
It's worth it.
And what I love about the Congressional Dish is that you're willing to watch these hearings.
Yeah.
I fucking hate Robert's rules with the power of the sun. And the idea of watching hearings and trying to, because I can't even listen to the speeches of Obama.
Yeah. Well, those are super boring to me. I sometimes watch them. I sometimes don't.
Well, they're full of lies.
They're full of lies. It's all a show. I like to watch the sausage being made.
Yeah.
And especially now, 5 years in, I know all these characters.
Yeah.
You know, like, I know who your husband is, you dirty bitch. I know that you're making money off of this. Like,
Nice.
it's so fun when you have some of the background, you know?
So
It's just, you can watch people being hypocritical. You can watch people being really good, you know? Like, Claire McCaskill. She's a Democratic senator from Missouri.
yeah.
She has been fighting contractors and waste and fraud and contracting for years and years and years. So anytime
and nobody gives a shit, and I've never heard of her. What's her name? Claire
McCaskill of Missouri. And like there's other areas where she's not great, but I know if there's a hearing that has to do with contracting and Claire walks in, I'm grabbing the popcorn because these are going to be a great 5 minutes.
Right.
Elizabeth Warren has the same thing. She walks into a banking committee, I'm watching.
Yeah.
You know, and then there's certain people like if Louis Gohmert says anything, I'm going to go take a 5-minute nap. So it's just like you just know.
Gohmert? How do you spell his last name?
Gohmert.
And who is he?
He's a goofball from Texas. He's a representative. I call it Gohmert hour. He'll go on the House floor. He gets like an hour every day to say whatever. It's the craziest stuff I've ever seen in my life. He's been in Congress for at least 10 years. It's unbelievable. Like this is what makes me crazy about meeting comedians now in my new podcasting world. I have met so many interesting, insightful people that I trust more than the ones that are in Congress.
Yeah.
And my comedian friends are all fame whores. And it's like you could be on international television for an hour a day saying whatever you want about the world.
Run for something.
Yeah. Instead, we have Louis fucking Gohmert up there talking about things that are pure nonsense.
Right.
Like Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Get on C-SPAN every day. Like, talk some sense into these people.
I don't want to be led by Joe Rogan, but fair enough.
I do.
But
He will legalize weed in a minute.
Right. But so will everyone else.
That's true. Except for these fools. This is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We're being run by
and the thing
people we
is
don't even like.
You follow 500 people every day.
Yeah, it's my soap opera.
It's your soap opera. So you would know that so for you to say that Joe Rogan would be a better representative in the House.
Hands down. I have no doubts about it.
That gives me more hope for Joe Rogan than I've ever had in my life. I've never met Joe Rogan, but every time I hear him say something, I also go take a lap because he is a fucking piece of work.
But that's what we need. We need some pieces of work in there to go up to these people in the leadership and be like, what the hell are you doing? This
Right.
makes no sense. This is clearly
broken.
corrupt.
Yeah.
We need people to say it to their faces and to behave like this is not normal.
Right.
Because when you watch them, it's a completely different universe. They all think it's okay. They all think it's normal. They all take the campaign contributions.
Yeah.
And at this point, the way I'm seeing it is that they're collecting all the money to get our votes, but they need the money to advertise themselves to us.
Yeah.
The only people that can really compete with that right now until we can change the system are people who are already famous. That's how Trump did it.
Right.
So we need some like legit famous people who are good people to at least volunteer. In California, it costs, I think, it's less than $1,800 to get yourself on the primary ballot.
Okay.
I would love for some celebrities to just put their names on the ballot. If they're good people,
Yeah.
put your name on the ballot. At least give us the chance to vote for you.
Yeah.
Because at this point, like, money is controlling who's running because we don't know who these people are.
Now, what about there are representatives here in California?
Yeah, we have 52 or 53 of them.
We have 53 representatives in the House of Representatives because this state is enormous.
It is. It's huge.
I'm from Wisconsin. Do you know anything about the Wisconsin representatives?
Well, yeah,
Besides-
Paul Ryan is the Speaker of the House.
Yeah, he's. I believe he date raped me in college. I'm not saying he did. I'm just saying he looks like the
He
guy.
has that look.
and he's age appropriate.
He looks like the guy that would go to sleep in like a sleeping cap and like footy pajamas.
No, that makes him human for me. Between him and Scott Walker, my state is on fire.
Well, see, this is another thing that's happening to me is that I am seeing these people as human. I watch them every day.
Okay.
Paul Ryan is super Jesus-y, like super Jesus-y, but he's
Is he
also
really?
good. Oh yeah. But he's also a nice person. Like I was watching C-SPAN just randomly when Steve Scalise, who was the congressman that got shot playing baseball like 6 months ago, the day he came back, he was sitting on a couch and the cameras were there and Paul Ryan came in and just like hugged him and cried. He was like, I'm so glad you're here. Like, I prayed for you so hard. And like, it was a really genuine thing for him to say to a friend. And I was just like, I don't like how you run this country and everything you think about economics.
Right.
But I don't hate you. There's
Right.
not a single person in Congress that I hate. And I think that's another thing too. You really have to watch the individual and humanize all of them because they are just people. We look at the institution of Congress as if it's like this thing that's bigger than us. It's just a bunch of people just like us. Some are good, some are bad. According to John Boehner, some are Nazis. Like he just said that in Politico this week. So we have a very representative group in Congress, according to the former Speaker of the House, and that we have everything in there. I just wish that we would get more people who weren't bribed.
Right.
You know?
And the fact that they've sort of this entirely different universe that they think, well, this is how it works, so I shouldn't try to work it in any other way. Mm-hmm. That's kind of fascinating.
Yeah. I think we need to get people in that aren't bribed to make the bribery illegal.
Right. Right.
These people sure won't.
Right. So they won't because they have been bribed. Mm-hmm. They have all been bribed.
And they think that's the system. It's normal. It's okay. I vehemently disagree with that, as do I think most of us that aren't involved. But until we're aware of what's happening, especially us non-voters, because that's the other thing too. The people that we've relegated all politics to are the most extreme. Yeah. So it's like we have about 20 to 25% of this country that votes Republican no matter what, no matter who it is. Mm-hmm. And we have, I don't really know what the Democrats, that's a more fluid group of people. But 50% of us, half of us, are sitting on the sidelines.
And not voting.
Just sitting back being like, that's just crazy. I've got shit to do. I'm not involved in this. And that's why everything seems so polarized and why everything on TV and on the internet seems like we're all fighting with each other. But in my day-to-day life, no one's screaming at each other.
No one's screaming at each other.
No, and we're fine.
Right. Even if someone's wearing a weird Trump hat in the grocery store, I don't talk to the guy. Yeah. I don't go run over to him and punch him in the nose. There was a bad incident a couple of months ago. Rangers know. That was an abnormal event. Anyway, so but if someone has terrible politics on their T-shirt, and same with that's where I keep my vagina. Like, I mean, if some guy's wearing a horrible, like Venice Beach, my pussy is my wife or something, or something. I mean, like some horrible fucking thing, right? It would be, I don't go up to that guy and go, hey, I wish you wouldn't wear that in public.
Yeah.
I think to myself, I'm not going to hang out with that guy. That guy's not coming over for lunch.
Yeah.
This type of thing. So.
And I'm crazy in the other way in that I went to Nashville and I saw a guy wearing like a Trump coat.
Yeah.
So what I did is I stalked him so I could get a good picture of it. And then I walked away.
Yeah.
But we didn't fight. No one's
what coat?
fighting.
Is there a Trump coat?
He had to have it specially made. I've never seen it anywhere else, but it was like a white coat. It was black and white, but the black part was like a bunch of his faces. So it's like a wallpaper of Trump's face. And it was a nice, like, sports coat. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, I kind of love this person.
It's Trump cosplay out in the world. You're like, can I just have a picture of you? It'd be like if you were dressed as Daredevil. You're like, can I just at a con?
I was like, I'm in Nashville. This is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. We're not going to fight about this. I just love you.
Right.
But there's this whole middle. There's a whole bunch of us that I think don't feel represented that I want to talk to. You know? And I feel like instead of doing NPR and preaching to the choir or like going on Rachel Maddow or Fox or any of that shit, like that's not what I want to do. I want to talk to comedians. I want to be on the stage and like, I just want to have conversations about Congress with normal people. Right. And hopefully get people to help me fix this.
Right.
Make my TV better.
Right. It's the drama, keep the drama, but make the drama actually effective.
I just want to get 2 to 3 comedians. That's the dream, just to get a couple. To get into the House of Representatives. It's easy.
Is Al Franken? He's in the Senate.
Yeah, he's disappointed me. He became one of them.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he's not funny anymore.
Well,
I used to really look forward to him, but he's let me down so often. And he's also very much bribed. He takes an enormous amount of money. So I don't think he's our ally the way he used to be.
Well, and here's the thing you should know about comics. I know that you believe in comedians and that they are your great white hope. Comics do any number of shitty things for less money than you'd imagine.
I know.
So we are easily bribed, sadly. We could be purchased. I am driving to Westlake Village for $100 in January. That's not okay. And I'm not saying that the guy who booked me is making $300. He might be making 3 times what I'm making, but he might not be. I don't know.
Well, it's the only card I have to play right now. The only hope I have is that we get some funny people in there to make C-SPAN must-see TV like it is for me.
Yeah.
And then people start paying attention.
Right.
And when I think of comics, I'm like, who are the biggest whores that I know for TV time?
That you are correct.
And you'll get an hour Like you get at least a minute every morning if you want it. Sometimes it's 5. And then they just let you talk for
Stage
half an
time.
hour.
You know, I had an idea for a TV show, and it was a comic who won presidency, and then he filled his cabinet with comics, and every day they would want to do a press conference because they needed the stage time.
Sounds like Trump.
It sounds like Trump, except for
Funny.
Funny and slightly more human, because he doesn't. He's what my favorite thing about Trump recently, and I use the term loosely, is that he just wants to play at being a big shot.
Yeah.
Like he wants to have meetings with people. He wants to talk in front of a press conference. He wants to go golf with people in power.
Yeah.
And he wants to play at being a big shot, not realizing he's actually a big shot.
Yeah.
There's tasks that he could be doing because he has a big shot job. And, okay, go play being a big shot, weirdo Magoo. And hopefully it doesn't Emperor Palpatine on us. Like, he's not going to... Do you foresee any sort of, like, dissolving of the Congress by
No.
By Donald Trump?
No. I think his ego is too big. I think we are seeing exactly what he is. He's playing the president.
Yes.
He's TV. I'm far more concerned about what Mike Pence is doing because I think he's the one running the country. Just how like Dick Cheney was running the country for George W. Bush. Pence is running the country for Donald Trump, which is why like there was no indication that this was going to be an administration by and for fossil fuels. But there was plenty of that when you saw Mike Pence. Like he is in bed with the Koch brothers, has been for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And now you see the Koch brothers congressman, literally. Mike Pompeo was the Koch brothers congressman. He represented them in Congress and they gave him over $375,000 to run. He was their congressman. He is now the CIA director. Rex Tillerson is the CEO of ExxonMobil. Like
Right.
these were picks made by Pence while Trump was golfing.
Right.
You know, so it's like he's not really running shit. And all these people are like, we're going to impeach him. And I'm like, okay, you're just going to make Pence more official.
Right.
Let's pay attention to Congress because they can throw both of them out on their asses.
Right.
They have the power.
Right.
So Congress is my hope for everything.
Right.
And at this point, my only goal is to get people to look at it.
If you could please watch these hearings. So C-SPAN 3,
It's so good.
that's the money shot right there. Because
That's
it's
the good one.
how big are the hearings?
Well, they can range. So sometimes they're an hour, sometimes they're an entire day, sometimes they go multiple days.
And are they 12 people? Are they 100 people?
Sometimes I've seen, so I saw one, it was like John McCain, Lindsey Graham, and he was questioning like Henry Kissinger, Jack Keane, who's a really influential general, and James Mattis, who's now our Secretary of Defense. And there were like 3 people in the room, but I was able to watch it through the committee website. So here, if you want to go into like the deep Congress, you can watch all the hearings on their website. So there's a lot that doesn't even make it to C-SPAN. And I have to record that through my computer screen because you can't download it.
Right.
But that's where the good stuff is. That's where the real conversations
That's where they're
happen.
hiding. Because they know no one's watching.
They know no one's watching. And sometimes there's no one even in the room.
Oh,
It's
hello,
amazing.
Aaron Burr.
And in that one, they planned the
have you
war
seen
in
Hamilton?
Syria. I haven't.
Okay. But they planned the war in Syria?
In that empty hearing. I watched it, and then everything they said was going to happen fucking happened. It was amazing.
Ah.
See, this thing, I'm like excited about it. I'm like, this is so cool.
It was amazing and gross.
It was so gross. But
so, and it's called the committee. What's the website?
so it's just there's a bunch of different committees. So you just go to
You have
whichever
to.
one.
You're so where is so if you go to .gov, right? If you go to Congress.gov and you go to what hearings are today. Is there such a thing?
There is. It's easier to find it with the ones that already happened.
Okay.
Because they changed their schedule and stuff. But there is, if you look up Congressional Record, there's something called the Daily Digest. It's the first few pages. It's between 6 and 12 pages. Anyone can look at it. And that lists what all the hearings were that took place. So that's how I find out about the secret ones.
Right.
I look them up on C-SPAN first. If they're not there, I go straight to the committee because it'll tell you which one it is.
Yeah.
And you just look at the hearings on the website. It's probably on YouTube.
And it was, but this is probably a day later.
Yeah. It's
might
usually
be-
downloaded about a day later.
Okay.
I mean, we have amazing access to our government for now. I am afraid because there's nothing on legally saying they have to put all the hearings on YouTube. That's a law that I would really love to see.
Yeah.
Because they could just strip the internet. It's another
Yeah.
reason why I like to download the stuff and keep it in my Dropbox where it's just like I can prove that it happened.
Yeah.
You know, and
You
give
were
people
there.
time stamps. And even if the link disappears, it's like, well, here's the transcripts, here's the timestamps. Like, someone in history has this.
Yeah.
But they could make those disappear. But as long as we have them,
Yeah.
they're fun to watch.
They're fun to watch. Well, this has been terrifying and
You're welcome.
fascinating. Exactly. And, but it is fascinating, and there's a part of me that wishes that I listened to it more myself, but I can't. So, but
me
I
do it for ya.
I do vote, and if Congressional Dish sounds like a fascinating. So, do you listen to other podcasts at 1.5?
I have been.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Just because you got to get the info.
Well, my favorite podcasts are so long. So it's like Joe Rogan goes for 3 hours.
Yeah.
No agenda. I like that one. And goes for 3 hours. And
3-hour podcast.
yeah.
Who's No
I just
Agenda?
don't have enough time. So that's Adam Curry. He's
Okay.
one of he used to be an MTV VJ. That's how most
Okay.
people know him. But he's also interested in the same crap. He watches hearings and reads bills.
Yeah.
And John C. Dvorak, who most people know from This Week in Tech, and he's been a writer forever. And what they do is they watch the media and analyze the way the media is covering everything.
Okay.
And so they're kind of how I'm finding out how the media is covering things, because I don't watch any of it. I'm
Right.
in airports a lot, so that's how I absorb some of it.
Nope.
But I avoid it.
I only read the news. I will not have anyone tell me what the news is.
I don't want. Tell me what the news is. Don't tell me what to think about it.
Well,
My brain
that's-
works just fine.
That's why I will only, and I will read their speeches. I read all of Obama's speeches. I read all of Bill Clinton's speeches. I read George Bush's skimmed. There was some speeches. There's some skimming, but it's easier to see the lies in print
Absolutely.
because of the blank space, and I can, that the magic eye. It's beautiful. I can, all of a sudden, that's a dolphin. Yeah. And but it's easier in print. I can tell that I'm being lied to easier.
Yeah.
And but I could see the appeal of. I would love to know who, like you've named a half a dozen people that I've never heard of. That I don't know who they are, and quite honestly, I don't care. But because I love the idea of representative government, where I don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
I just want a representative who will fix this. And my joke, of course, is that I'm an Amazon Prime member. I don't understand. I've already paid for shipping. Fix this. And so, But yeah, I get that advanced citizenship requires this kind of work.
Yeah. Well, and the good news is you're not required to know all 535. You're required to know 3. You have 2 in the Senate, 1 in the House. Those are your only responsibilities. And so if we just break it down to that, if you know your person, how they're voting, because that's the other thing too. How are we supposed to judge our representative if we don't know what the hell these bills did?
Yeah.
So that's another reason why I want to do this. I want to pick out like the healthcare one. I really tracked that all last year and kept track of how everybody voted. And I think that's what you should be voting on in 2012. How they voted on that is so important.
Right.
And then, there's other ones too, though. You can see how they vote about all this stuff I'm talking about.
Right,
So,
right.
And I just follow my own rabbit holes, but I only feel responsible for my 3. And
Yeah. Well, I thought there were 52. What just happened?
Well, because you only get to vote for one representative in the House.
Yeah.
So yes, California has 53, but you only vote for the one in this group of 700,000 that you're in.
Right.
So that's the only one you have any power over. If you even call the next congressman over, they won't take your call because you're not a constituent.
Okay.
So you only need to be concerned. Like you personally, you have Feinstein and Harris. Those are your senators. And then Van Nuys, I have no fucking idea who your representative is.
If you said it, I would know it.
I probably know it, but I just
Right,
don't.
and you don't know you don't have the geography in your head.
Well, Los
and I don't
Angeles
have the
alone
name
has
in my
like
head.
20 of them.
Right, because
So-
there's 11 million people. So
Yeah. So, and that's the most important thing to keep in mind is like when you break it down, when you look at those specifics, just like in your job, it's also in the Congress. It's a lot easier to digest when you look at I'm only responsible for these 3 and I can pick out a couple bills to judge them on and just show up and vote.
yeah,
But we can't have 50 of us sitting on the sidelines and let the crazies run this place.
yeah.
And that's what we're doing now.
Fair enough. And we are at an hour, that's an excellent message. Excellent message, Jen Briney. It's okay.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you. I had to write that down, so I'm glad you took over the podcasting. See, that's
what pros do.
That's what pros do. We're talking here, of course, to Jen Briney, at Jen Briney on Twitter and Instagram. Her podcast, Congressional Dish, sounds like required listening, you guys, and kind of hilarious, as you will find out the different characters of the people that run the United States of America. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And you know the rules out there, Rangers. Take care of each other.
My hat, my hat, my hat. They're dancing around my hat. My hat, my hat, my hat. Well, what do you think of that? If it looks like a Mexican hat dance and it sounds like a Mexican hat dance, it's most likely a Mexican hat dance. So take off your hat and let's dance.
Yay! Oh my God. Why don't we just call that as the end of the show?